The first half of the 20th century saw two gigantic cataclysmic conflicts, the First and Second World War, which dwarfed just about anything the world had seen before. In terms of body count, in terms of destructive refinements of technology, in terms of all-out war and what you were going to do to the other guy if you won, they were just unprecedented. And they were by and large fought in Europe, or on the periphery of Europe, between Western armies. Russia, the United States, Great Britain, Germany, France, etc. These countries are all Western countries of Indo-European heritage. One could say that the First and the Second World War were just two rounds of a general European civil war that started around 1914 and even never really ended until about 1945, or some would even say 1991, when communism disintegrated. But since that happened, it looks increasingly unlikely, and gets less likely with every passing year, that there'll be another general European war. It just, I don't know, I can't imagine the circumstances under which that could happen. Even Russia, which has sort of run afoul of a lot of other European countries, really isn't likely to seriously menace anyone. So a repeat of that is, at least for the foreseeable future, extremely unlikely. Now, that could be, and I hope it is, a reaction against these two world wars, the First and the Second World War. Prior to about 1914, the Europeans had pretty much assumed that they were the be-all and end-all of world civilization. They were the culmination of human advancement, progress, this sort of thing, and anyone else was below them. And they were morally superior, technologically superior, economically superior, more civilized, more forward-thinking, more rational. And 20 million dead between 1914 and 1918 caused them to at least stop and examine themselves to say, are we really all that civilized? After the Second World War took place, after the horrors of Nazi Germany, I think that the West, I don't mean just Germany or the United States or the belligerents, but the West in general, really, in its own estimation, and more importantly in the estimation of the rest of the world, had pretty much forfeited any claim to being any more civilized than anyone else, any more progressive or forward-thinking. And also, I think, there was a lot of soul-searching that took place immediately afterwards. The Germans, in particular, are still going through a period where they haven't quite psychologically recovered from their sense of guilt over things that took place more than 50 years ago, 60 years ago. And I think that sense of guilt, that sense of being jaundiced about your own position vis-a-vis the rest of the world, has been healthy, and I think it has caused the West to question its constant need to fight itself. So perhaps Western powers have actually learned something, and they're slowly turning their back, or they're beginning to turn their back on this idea of endless rivalry between each other, deadly rivalry. And I think that it's a process that started in 1945 and pretty much will proceed and will become more and more pronounced, this integration and renunciation of warfare, at least between Europeans, for the foreseeable future. So I think that, in spite of everything that I've said in this series so far, if the Europeans were more warlike, or people of European heritage were more warlike as a result of their history, its very bloodiness in the first half of the 20th century, I think, shocked them, shocked us as Westerners, to the point where we're re-examining our very nature and asking ourselves, what are we here? We've created, if we think of ourselves as Westerners and the West as a cohesive unit, we created these two biggest disasters in human history, so maybe it's time that we rethought ourselves. And I think that that's actually taking place. There's been some wars since the Second World War, Vietnam, certain wars in the Middle East, the Iraq War, the war in Afghanistan. And no disrespect to the people that are stuck in all these wars, to the soldiers fighting in any of them, or to the civilians caught up in them, but in the grand scheme of warfare, Iraq and Afghanistan, even Palestine, aren't really all that big compared to the Second World War, or compared to any number of other wars one would like to sort of compare them to. So maybe we've learned our lesson. The only thing that causes me to question this possibility is the rhetoric that I remember accompanying 9/11, or the period after 9/11, after the West had gotten this profound shock. I don't want to say some of the things that I heard said after 9/11 in terms of vengeance to be visited upon the Arabs, the Muslims in general. But I think we all remember what was said in the heat of that moment when people were really shocked, scared, and then eventually angry. Did people mean this? I don't know. But I received a similar shock a while back when I saw Thunderfoot's notorious shock and awe video. I wonder how many Thunderfoots are out there among us who still seem to have that warlike propensity beneath the surface of an otherwise liberal, reasonable person. I hope it's not prevalent enough to make us all go crazy again if another 9/11 happens. I certainly hope so. Thank you.